Heinrich Müller was born on April 28, 1900 in Munich, Germany. His family was modest, Catholic, and hardworking. His father was a skilled craftsman, a man of discipline and order, and these values imprinted themselves deeply on young Heinrich. He grew up in a world that was about to change violently. The German Empire, proud and powerful at the dawn of the 20th century, would collapse into ruin before Heinrich reached adulthood. As a boy, Müller was quiet, serious, and meticulous. While other children played outside, he preferred reading, observing, and learning skills that required patience. Teachers described him as intelligent, diligent, and extremely focused, traits that would later define his career. In 1914, when the First World War broke out, Heinrich was only 14. Too young to fight, he watched his nation mobilize with fervor. By 1917, with Germany desperate for manpower, Müller joined the Bavarian Air Force, training as a pilot. He never became a full combat flyer, but the military discipline he absorbed shaped his character for life. He developed an unwavering respect for authority, order, and loyalty, principles that would dominate his future. When the war ended in 1918, Germany lay in chaos. The once proud empire had collapsed, and the Treaty of Versailles humiliated the nation. Revolution swept through German cities. Communists and right-wing paramilitaries fought bloody battles on the streets. Munich, Müller's hometown, was a center of this turbulence. To many young veterans like Müller, the country seemed on the brink of total disintegration. Seeking stability, Müller joined the Munich police force in 1919. As a young officer, Müller displayed traits that set him apart. He was incorruptible, tireless, and utterly devoted to his duties. He worked long hours, handled intelligence assignments, and proved highly effective at infiltrating communist cells and preventing uprisings. These experiences planted in him a deep hatred of communism and a belief that only strong, authoritarian rule could save Germany. Throughout the 1920s, Müller climbed the police ranks. He avoided political entanglements and focused solely on his work. But as the Weimar Republic faltered under economic crises and extremist movements gained strength, Müller's path inevitably crossed with the rising Nazi Party. By the early 1930s, the Nazis were a powerful force, and in 1933, Adolf Hitler rose to power. Müller, known for his expertise in surveillance and counter-subversion, became a valuable asset to the new regime. Though not initially a party member, he was pragmatic. He didn't care about ideology as much as he cared about efficiency and authority, and the Nazi state offered both. In 1934, Müller played a decisive role during the Night of the Long Knives, the purge in which Hitler eliminated rivals within his own movement. Müller's intelligence work provided critical information that allowed the regime to strike with precision. His effectiveness caught the attention of Heinrich Himmler, head of the SS, and Reinhard Heydrich, chief of the security service. They recruited Müller into the Gestapo, the secret state police, where his career would reach terrifying heights. By 1939, Müller had become head of the Gestapo itself, known simply as Gestapo Müller. He was one of the most feared men in Nazi Germany. Unlike the fiery ideologues who filled the regime, Müller was a cold bureaucrat. He rarely gave speeches, avoided the limelight, and worked silently behind the scenes. Yet his signature appeared on countless orders of arrest, deportation, and execution. Under his leadership, the Gestapo became a ruthlessly efficient machine of terror, crushing political opposition, hunting down Jews, and silencing anyone deemed a threat to the Reich. When World War II began, Müller's responsibilities expanded. He directed the suppression of resistance movements across occupied Europe, oversaw networks of informants, and collaborated with the SS in implementing the Holocaust. He worked closely with Reinhard Heydrich on the final solution, the systematic extermination of Europe's Jews. Though rarely present at killing sites, Müller was one of the key architects of the genocide, ensuring that trains ran on time to the death camps and that no opposition could interfere. To those who worked with him, Müller seemed almost inhuman. He was methodical, unemotional, and utterly devoted to his mission. Colleagues called him the Machine. Even Heinrich Himmler, who distrusted many subordinates, relied on Müller's competence. He had no interest in glory or power for its own sake. His power was in the shadows, and that was how he liked it. As the war dragged on and Germany began to lose ground, Müller remained at the center of Nazi security. In 1944, when German officers attempted to assassinate Hitler in the famous July 20th plot, it was Müller who led the brutal investigation afterward. Thousands were arrested, tortured, and executed under his supervision. He showed no mercy. By 1945, as the Third Reich collapsed, Müller stayed in Berlin, loyal to the end. While others fled or sought deals with the Allies, Müller prepared to fight to the last. In late April, as Soviet forces encircled the city, he was still at his desk in the Reich Chancellery. His last confirmed sighting was on April 30th, the day Hitler killed himself. After that, Heinrich Müller vanished from history. Was he killed in the final battle for Berlin? Did he escape, slipping into the chaos of post-war Europe? Or did he, as some would later claim, enter the service of a foreign power? His disappearance remains one of the great mysteries of World War II. What is certain is that Müller's life had already left an indelible mark, a man who rose from obscurity to become the secret enforcer of one of history's most brutal regimes. Soviet artillery pounded relentlessly, reducing entire neighborhoods to rubble. Inside the Reich Chancellery, chaos reigned. Ministers were fleeing, generals were surrendering, and even the most loyal of Hitler's circle began to lose hope. Yet Heinrich Müller, chief of the Gestapo, remained unshaken. While others sought escape routes, Müller stayed at his desk, issuing orders, destroying sensitive documents, and orchestrating what little resistance was left. He seemed determined to remain loyal to the very end. Or perhaps he had already crafted a plan beyond anyone's imagination. The last confirmed sighting of Müller was on the evening of April 30th, 1945, the same day Adolf Hitler took his own life. According to witnesses, Müller was calm, collected, and even confident. He reportedly told a colleague, "I haven't failed. The future will show who was right." After that, he vanished. When Soviet forces stormed the Chancellery on May 2nd, they found the remains of Hitler, Goebbels, and countless others, but no trace of Heinrich Müller. His disappearance would ignite decades of speculation, myths, and conspiracy theories. In the immediate aftermath of the war, the Allies desperately sought Müller. As head of the Gestapo, he possessed unparalleled knowledge of Nazi espionage networks, secret agents operating across Europe, and the inner workings of the SS. He knew who collaborated with the Nazis and which nations had covertly aided them. His capture could have rewritten post-war intelligence operations. Yet, despite the global manhunt, Müller never surfaced. Some believed he died in the ruins of Berlin. In 1963, German authorities claimed they had discovered a body in a mass grave near Berlin, which they identified as Müller's. However, no conclusive forensic evidence supported this claim, and many dismissed it as an attempt to close an embarrassing chapter. Others argued that Müller had escaped. Reports emerged in the late 1940s of a high-ranking Nazi officer seen in Czechoslovakia, then in Spain, and later in South America. Argentina and Paraguay, safe havens for many Nazis, were often mentioned as possible destinations. Some even claim to have seen Müller living comfortably under an assumed identity in Buenos Aires in the 1950s, guarded by former SS men. The most intriguing theory involved the intelligence services of the Cold War superpowers. Both the CIA and the Soviet KGB had reasons to recruit someone like Müller. The CIA sought experts on Soviet espionage and Nazi intelligence networks. The KGB wanted a man with detailed knowledge of Western operations and German anti-communist activities. Files declassified decades later revealed that the CIA considered the possibility that Müller had entered Soviet service. One document described him as likely under the protection of the USSR. Another suggested he might have been quietly interrogated by the Americans, but never publicly acknowledged, a common practice in the chaotic post-war years. If Müller survived, he would have carried secrets that could shake nations. He knew the truth about Nazi gold transfers, about post-war underground Nazi networks like Odessa, and about covert deals between certain Nazi officials and Allied powers. Perhaps his silence was bought. Perhaps it was enforced. What makes Heinrich Müller's case so haunting is not just his disappearance, but what it represents. The ability of a man who orchestrated terror on a massive scale to vanish into the shadows of history. While many of his fellow perpetrators faced trial in Nuremberg, Müller evaded justice entirely. He became a ghost, a reminder that some of history's darkest figures can simply disappear. Historians still debate whether Müller was a committed Nazi ideologue or a ruthless pragmatist who served power for power's sake. To his subordinates, he was a cold, meticulous bureaucrat, a man who signed death warrants over coffee, who could plan mass murder with the same detachment as drafting a routine police order. To the victims of the Gestapo, he was the faceless executioner behind the knock at the door in the night. To posterity, he remains an enigma, a man who helped build a machinery of terror, then slipped away as if the earth itself swallowed him. Today, more than 7 decades later, Heinrich Müller's fate is still officially unknown. Perhaps his bones lie beneath some unmarked grave in Berlin. Perhaps he died an old man in some quiet South American village, unrecognized, unpunished. Or perhaps, as some darkly suggest, he continued to influence the world long after 1945, hidden in the labyrinth of Cold War espionage. One thing, however, is certain. Heinrich Müller's story is a chilling testament to the shadows of history. How evil can wear a bureaucrat's face, how horror can be organized with pen and paper, and how sometimes justice is never served. His life and his disappearance remain a cautionary tale of what happens when power is given to those who value efficiency over humanity and loyalty over